Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and happy time to talk day. Welcome. Thank you for arriving a few minutes early. We are just going to give it a few more minutes to allow everybody else to arrive. And whilst we are waiting, if you want to drop into the chat your name and where in the world you are from, let's get a sense of the spread of people that we have today and how far and wide we are all from. So if you don't already know, I'm Neil and I'm in London. I'll be starting in just a minute. How many of you have attended one of our webinars before? A few of you. Great, fantastic. That's good to know. It's lovely to hear people come back. How many of you are here for the first time? How many, this is the first time you've attended one of our webinars? If you are a first timer, just let us know. Oh, great, we've got some first timers. Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining. I'm hoping that you find it useful. So we're just going to give it another 30 seconds and then we're going to get started. And final question before we get started. Can you see the slide? There should be a slide saying time to talk. Just checking the technology is working. Just give me a thumbs up or drop me a message in the chat. Fantastic. Excellent. So we're bang on 1 o'clock. Let's get into this. How many of you value the importance of good mental health? How many think that mental health is important and you value its importance in your life? Okay, great. I'm assuming that the fact that you're here, it is an important subject, but you may just be here out of curiosity. So even if it's not, that's okay. How many of you would like to learn some effective strategies and techniques to encourage others to talk about their mental health? Okay, great. Wonderful. And how many of you are not sure that you value mental health, not really interested in learning strategies, but you just hear out of curiosity? And even if that's the case, you are most welcome. Thank you for being here today. I'm hoping that either way, you get as much value from this session as possible. And in order for that to happen, I think it's really important that we spend a bit of time exploring how we run our sessions, particularly for those of you that are here for the first time, because we have kind of a unique approach in terms of how we run these sessions. This isn't one of those programs where you're just going to watch me for an hour, waffling on, sharing slides and stats and information. This is an interactive discussion. So I'm really keen to hear from you, to get your thoughts and your perspectives. We are going to be recording this session, and this is just in case you aren't able to attend the whole session, or if there are people that weren't able to attend live that have the opportunity to watch the recording. If there is anything that's shared here of a sensitive or a personal nature, and it doesn't feel like it's appropriate to share that to a broad audience of people that weren't here in person, we will edit that out. So who are we? For those of you who don't know, I am head of an organization called the Stress Management Society. We're a non-profit organization I set up 22 years ago off the back of a breakdown and an attempted suicide. And it was through the recovery of that experience that I recognized I wanted to do something to help other people that go through the same kind of thing. And over the last 2 decades, through various different campaigns, programs, and projects we've run, we've reached tens of millions of people. I think at the last count, it was more than 100 million people that we've reached, particularly through our primary campaign, which is Stress Awareness Month, which is coming up very soon in April this year. But we'll talk about that a little bit more later. And our primary kind of goal, our mission, is to create a happier, healthier, more resilient world, to give people access to the tools, the knowledge, and the guidance to increase their resilience to cope with the ever-increasing demands of modern life. We do also have a research and consultancy arm through which we work with many, many large corporate organizations across the world and various organizations to really improve their people, cultural, and well-being approach. And that's called International Wellbeing Insights. And essentially, we're doing our best to create a world that's a little bit better than we found it. These sessions, we always run them for free, but we can only continue to do that with the support of the people that benefit from the work that we do. So if you're able to support us in any way, you can click the QR code. My colleague Leah, who's my co-pilot, Leah, give us a wave. She'll put a link into the chat as well. Particularly with our big campaign coming up in April, your support, your donations really help us to continue doing this work and continue providing resources like this and all the other resources we provide for free. Through the generosity and the support of all of those that interact with us. So there is a link in the chat. If you are able to help and support us, that would be amazing. So how do we use this session? This is as best as possible an opportunity for us to engage, open up, talk, share our ideas, ask questions, and get involved in meaningful discussions. This isn't me talking at you. This is us having a collective discussion. So for those of you that have attended our sessions before will know, we are encouraging you to put your cameras on. So it's human beings talking to other human beings. I live in London, and London last year was voted as the loneliest city on the planet. You could quite literally live in a city of 9 million people and feel lonely, isolated, disconnected, and disengaged from all the humans around you. It's very challenging and uncomfortable to be in a meeting where all you can see are letters on a screen, particularly when you don't know the people. So for us to be able to have more human-to-human interactions, if you're able to, if you can, I'm very strongly encouraging you to put your cameras on so we can have meaningful dialogue with each other. I will ask a lot of questions. They aren't rhetorical questions, they're actual questions. So you can unmute yourself, jump onto the mic, or put your hand up and we'll unmute you if you're struggling to do that. As well as obviously being able to pop your thoughts into the chat box. And every so often, my colleague Leah will bring your comments from the chat into the discussion. But as I said, like, we want to hear from you. Your thoughts, your feelings, your perspectives are crucial for this to work. If we don't get that two-way engagement, then it's going to be a very short and not a particularly engaging session. So please do encourage you to do your 50%. So some of the ground rules that cover our program are being present. Approach this discussion as a sense, as an opportunity of mindfulness, being present in this moment with no judgment. Being open, honest, and respectful. Limit other distractions. Turn your technology off or silent if you're able to. We only got an hour together. How can we maximize this time that we have together by ensuring that we're able to be fully present and focused? Have an open mind. What you put in will determine what you take out. If we are making any kind of statements, please use I statements, so taking ownership of your thoughts, feelings, and opinions. And we ask for confidentiality. So if somebody shares something of a personal nature in this session, just want your express consent that won't be shared outside of this session. Essentially, as I said, like, if there are things of a personal nature that are shared, we will edit that out before sharing the recording. The only time that rules of confidentiality will be broken are if anything is presented that impacts your safety or the safety of others. For safeguarding reasons, that's the only time that the rules of confidentiality will be broken. Leah, I've just seen, I can't even see you. Leah, can you see and hear me?
Yeah, I can see
you. Could you just look at the meeting settings and see if we can change the settings so people can come on mic and camera, please?
Okay, fine.
Sorry, guys, for the technical hitch. I'm not sure why that's happened, but we will do our best to fix it. So you will be able to get involved. Thank you for your patience. There are some resources that will accompany today's session. Leah will put the link into the chat. It's at www.stress.org.uk/TTD, which stands for Time to Talk Day. So the slide deck, as well as the recording, which we will upload tomorrow, and lots of other resources will be available on that link. That's, again, all free of charge. You just need to click the link in the chat. Not all the resources will be there today, but they will be uploaded by tomorrow, because obviously we haven't got the video yet because we haven't finished the session, but it will be there in due course. Okay, how many of you have heard of Time to Talk Day, and what does it mean to you? So just while we're figuring out how to unmute you all, Shauna, I see you've got your hand up. Let me see if I can unmute you. There we go. Okay. I'm not sure I can. Until we sort out the technical issues, maybe put the answers into the chat. What does Time to Talk Day mean to you? So obviously, this is a day that is marked every year. If you have heard of it before, what does it mean to you? Because that's really what we're here to talk about. Awesome. So we've got Sam saying, starting a conversation about mental health, time to talk about non-work related things and be real with our feelings. Absolutely. All of the above. And one of the biggest challenges is that it's a conversation that's not easy or comfortable. And many people find it really challenging to open up around mental health because, as Sarah said, there is a huge amount of stigma that wraps around the subject. And part of this is, how do we tackle that guilt, shame, and stigma that still exists in 2024, 2025 even? Fact is that we've made so many advancements in society, yet when it comes to mental health, things seem to be getting worse, not better. Year on year, over the last 2 or 3 years, the suicide figures in all the home countries, England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the suicide figures have gone up. Suicide's the main cause of death for a man under the age of 50 and rapidly becoming the same for a 10 to 19-year-old in Britain today. That's scary, which means that we aren't doing well enough to open up spaces and dialogues around mental health that we can get people the support they need long before they get to the point where they feel they can't cope anymore. So this is really one of the things that I want to focus on today. Is Time to Talk Day, for many people, represents, well, what are we going to say? How are we going to show up? But for me, there's two sides to the talking equation. It's not just what we say, but how do we create the space for others to talk? And Lucia, as you're right, there's a whole variety of reasons over the last few years: social media, COVID, loneliness, online shopping, the list goes on, to the point where it feels like an episode of Black Mirror. That, you could live in a popular city like London and find yourself feeling completely alone. Sorry, completely lonely. You're not alone, but you feel lonely. And this is really where having opportunities for more meaningful dialogue is crucial. So let's just see if we've got the ability to turn cameras and microphones on. If you're able to, if you could test to see if you have the option to turn your camera on yet, and that should hopefully result in being able to put your microphone on as well. So does that work now? Fantastic. So
Yeah,
amazing. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you, Leah. I just saw one or two faces. So yeah, if you're able to now, please do put your cameras on, and when I ask a question, you'll be able to unmute yourself and get involved in the discussion. So this is going to just make it a little bit more real for all of us. So coming into this subject in a bit more detail, so Time to Talk is an opportunity to talk about mental health, but what is it we're talking about? How would you define mental health? When you hear the term mental health, what comes to mind? So again, actual question, not a rhetorical one. Charlotte, go for it. Charlotte, Lucia, Margaret, if any of you want to share, please jump on.
I would say, yeah, I'd say well-being.
Okay.
I mean, it can cover a multitude of things, can't it? But yeah, I suppose it's your well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you hear the term mental health, typically what comes to mind? Just the term mental health. What comes to mind?
It's normally a negative. You hear it and think something negative rather than something positive.
Matthew, yeah, it's a good point. When you say negative, what? Give me some examples.
It's like you often hear about someone having poor mental health. You never hear anyone sort of saying they have good mental health. If you get me.
So it's an important point. I appreciate you raising that. When you hear mental health, would you agree a lot of people would associate the term mental health with things like stress, anxiety, depression, mental illness? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Yeah, absolutely. If I said to you, Matthew, you're mental or you've gone mental, how would you receive that statement?
It would depend on the context, but I barely know you, so it's a bit of a difficult one. If we had a previous relationship and we knew each other, and you said something like to me, then I'd maybe take it in a different way than if you like say I've just met you today and you said that to me. It's a bit of a where's this come from?
But what would that statement mean to you? If I've made a statement like you're mental or you've gone mental, how would you receive that statement? What does it mean to you?
Again, it would be a negative. More than likely, it would be a negative. It would feel like negative feedback.
Yeah, like you've gone crazy, right? That's how it would be received.
Yeah.
So this is an interesting one. So Nicholas, for example, Nicholas Radjica. I don't know if I got that correctly.
Yeah.
If I give you the term physical health as a comparison, what does that mean to you? What comes to mind when you hear the term physical health?
Physical health is not for me. It can mean a lot of things. Could be maybe I got something wrong with my leg, my arm, or whatever. But when you say mental health, it's like it affects the whole body, and and like you said before, it comes with so much negativity that you think, oh, I'm mad.
Absolutely. So with physical health, I see Lucia, Jacqueline saying things like strength, physical peak. We've actually done research on this. And often when you just give someone the term physical health and ask them what they associate with physical health, often people say things like going to the gym, doing exercise, sleeping well, eating well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But physical health has certain associations with it, and mental health, as Matthew said, has some negative associations with it. So if this is the health disc, the purple side is physical and the grey side is mental. It's the same disc, it's the health disc, it's just two sides to the disc. Does that make sense? So the physical side seems to be viewed in the positive. You flip it over, the mental seems to be viewed in the negative. For example, if I said to you, Jack McNamara, if I said to you, you've gone physical, what does that mean to you?
To me, that I take that as I've started kind of looking after my body a little bit, or maybe in an aggressive mindset as well.
It could be, yeah. But it could be like, like you're pumped, you're ready for action, you've been spending some time in the gym, you've got yourself shredded. It could obviously, it depends on the context. I totally agree with that. But it's not an automatic jump to the negative. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You've gone physical doesn't have the same connotations as you've gone mental, as I said to Matthew. And this is an interesting point, because what I've actually said to Matthew is you've gone in your head. You've gone mental, right? If I've said to Jack, you've gone physical, I'm saying you've gone into your body, right? If you literally look at what I'm saying. And isn't it fascinating that you've gone mental is construed as a negative statement, that person's gone crazy, and you've gone physical, it's like you're pumped up and ready for action. And this is really part of the issue, is the stigma wrapped around this subject makes it really hard for people to open up. Because you're struggling with your mental health or you're having a tough time, and you may as well be admitting that you've gone crazy, even though that's not the case. So we need to address this, because you're not going to get people opening up and talking about it if we haven't removed the barriers of people being able to engage in such discussions. So Leah, what's come up in the chat? Is there anything that you want to share around some of the comments in the chat? Because I've not been able to keep up with that.
Yeah, so there's some people, when you asked about mental health, some people said when you hear someone say that person has mental health, to me it means that they have mental illness or something negative. Someone else said, we are British, we have grown up with don't eat, problems in public, stiff upper lips, don't I don't know if I can say that, get you down, etc. Laugh and the words laugh with you, cry and you cry alone. Someone else also said, we all have mental health and it's the way we respond to a situation that can affect it or not. A lot of people were agreeing with what you said as well. And they basically said that when you think of mental health, you kind of think of the negative side. When you think of physical health, you think of strength and a more positive side.
And Jacqueline, I'll add to the comments you put in there. Grown men don't cry, soldier on, pull your socks up and get on with it. And this is really where, like, if you can't pull your socks up and get on with it, if you are a grown man and you dare to cry, you aren't good enough, you're weak, you're a failure. I don't agree with that. Just like you can sprain your ankle playing football, or you could catch a cold or a flu, you can pick up a tummy bug. Every single one of us potentially at times will struggle with mental health, because life will deal us an experience that might be tough to deal with, like the loss of a loved one, or a significant change in your life, or stress at work, or financial issues, or whatever else. And this is where when we start to remove that guilt, shame, and stigma, it makes it easier to open up and talk about these subjects. Because actually approaching someone and saying, tell me about your mental health, what's going on, how you're feeling, and you haven't actually addressed the elephant in the room, which is not the fact that it's not an easy or comfortable conversation for many of us, that's not going to encourage people to open up. That's not going to encourage dialogue. So this is where I wanted to firstly give you a definition that is easy for us to get our heads around. So if you had to give someone that has no concept of mental health a definition of it, what would you say to them? How would you define it?
Sorry, can you just repeat that? It's an email popped through. I'm
No
so
worries.
sorry.
How would you define mental health to someone that doesn't know what you're talking about, never come across this concept of mental health before? How would you define mental health to them?
I'm
I'd probably say
jump in
something like,
again. Go on, no, go on.
I'd probably say something along the rounds of how well you regulate your emotions and thoughts around what happens in daily life.
That's a good one. Thanks, Jack. Yeah, how well you regulate your thoughts and emotions. Yeah. Anyone else?
A person's condition with respect to their psychological and emotional well-being.
Yeah, great. Fantastic.
That's per Oxford.
Awesome. Leah, what we got in the chat?
Mental well-being or well-being of mind, how our well-being is, looking after the emotional as well as the physical, your emotional state, getting the best out of yourself, something that can be both high and low, well or unwell.
Great. I'm going to share with you the World Health Organization's definition of mental health. I'm actually going to read it, and it's a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. Now, this is interesting because a lot of the definitions that we've got are either describing positive or negative mental health. Does that make sense? It's either slanted towards mental health when it's compromised or when it's positive. Even the World Health Organization one is slanted towards a positive. I think we need something that's a little bit more universally applicable. I would like to share with you our definition of mental health. And it's really easy to remember and really easy to get your head around, because it is quite literally 3 words: how we think, how we feel, and how we behave. If your mental health is compromised, you're having a really tough time, you're very stressed, you've not been sleeping well, you've got problems at work, that's then resulted in relationship challenges, you've not been able to look after yourself, you're not eating well, you really are struggling. So let's say you're having this really stressful and traumatic period in your life. What kind of thoughts have we got going on in our mind? What are we thinking? What is happening in our minds?
I mean, how many thoughts can you have? You know, I mean, you can be overloaded by them.
Thank you, Matthew. So you get overwhelmed, overloaded. Your mind is racing, constant internal chatter. You're talking to yourself negatively. You might start shouting at yourself. You're pathetic, you're useless, you can't cope, you're not good enough. There's that kind of negativity. We might shut down and just like rabbit in the headlights syndrome. Screaming, internal kind of really loud voices, competing voices. Catastrophic thinking, you literally are focused on the problem and you can think about nothing other than the problem. You can't think about how you progress beyond this. So you don't believe things are going to get better. So I think you've all got a sense of the kind of thoughts we're experiencing when our mental health is compromised. Would we agree with that? What about flip it on its head? Other side of the spectrum, where your mental health is wonderful. You just come back from 4 weeks of holiday. You're so relaxed, so calm, and you come back and you just ease back into the flow of life. There wasn't a backlog at work. Everything seems to be going well. The weather's great. The family are doing well. All aspects of your life, you're feeling good. You're happy. You're in an optimal mental and emotional state. What thoughts have we got going on now? So Leslie, that's interesting. You said peace. Peace for me is a feeling. We're going to come to feelings in a minute, but what's going on in your mind? What kind of thoughts are we experiencing? What's the internal chatter saying? Okay, you may have a quiet mind. Yeah. What else is happening inside that internal dialogue you've got going on? What kind of things are we hearing? So it'll be a calmer, softer voice, maybe not so erratic, quieter, yeah. Self-appreciation, again, your internal dialogue is, you're talking to a friend, not an enemy. You're not arguing with yourself. You're having positive dialogue. You are able to see solutions, not problems. It's the reverse of catastrophic thinking. It's optimistic thinking. And there's going to be a lot of internal dialogue which is supporting you in being able to enjoy your life. You've got positive thoughts, exactly as Winsome has said, and you're action orientated. Does that make sense? Yeah, wonderful. And Bernie, absolutely, you feel capable, likable, responsive, confident. You are having a pleasant internal dialogue. So we're pretty clear of what the thoughts look like when we have positive mental health and what the thoughts look like when we have compromised mental health. What about what we're feeling? Now, I know I pointed to my head when I said thoughts, and I'm pointing to my heart when I said feelings. Thoughts don't take place in your head. They take place in the entirety of your body, and feelings take place in the entirety of your body. I'm just using this for ease of reference. What are we feeling when we've got negative mental health? You go back to that traumatic experience where we're really overloaded, overwhelmed, stressed. What are we feeling? Okay, we feel lost, as Jack's saying. What else? Tired, restless, numb, frustrated, overwhelmed, agitated, angry, emotional, sad, low, yeah, depressed, exhausted, tense, absolutely. So there's a lot of very clear and specific feelings and emotions that are associated with negative or compromised mental health. I think we've all got a sense of that. Other side of the coin, when mental health is positive, what are you feeling when you have optimal mental health? When things are going great. So relaxed, calm, content, connected, loving. Wigan branch, I'm not sure what your actual name is, but more attractive, absolutely, because you feel more confident. Your self-esteem increases. You feel alive. You feel energized. Everything feels fun and joyful. You feel pleasure. You feel excitement. So they're very clear and specific emotions associated with the feelings of positive mental health. And what about behaviors? Again, going back to the negative mental health, you're really struggling, things are bad. How are you likely to show up in the world? What kind of behaviors will you evidence? What are you going to do? So self-destructive, what does that look like? Specifically, what would we do that could be self-destructive? So over under eating, that's a great example. Snappy, aggressive, closed body language. We turn to things like alcohol, nicotine, sugar, junk food, caffeine, drugs, whether recreational or pharmaceutical, doom scrolling on Instagram and social media, burying your head into Netflix, not socializing, withdrawing, disengaging, sleeping too much or not sleeping at all. So absolutely avoidance. So we're pretty clear, like there is behaviors that we would associate with compromised mental and emotional well-being or compromised mental and emotional health. What about positive mental health? You're doing great, everything's wonderful. How are you likely to show up in the world differently? How will your behaviors change? Absolutely, you're more likely to engage socially, to go out and make an effort to be around people, to interact, spend time in nature, dance, laugh, have fun, eat well, look after yourself, sleep well, go to the gym, you know, tackle life, go on adventures. You'll take the time to look after yourself. Absolutely, all of the above. So what I'm saying here is the simple definition of mental health is how someone is thinking, feeling, and behaving. And we're very clear from our discussions today, it's a very different set of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors associated with either positive or negative mental health. When we're able to pick this up, it's a lot easier to be able to recognize how we're doing and how others are doing. And then that's the step that we can take when we recognize when someone's potentially not in a particularly great place, that we can start to take action to encourage people to talk about and open up regarding their mental health. What can we do though? We've established it's not an easy or comfortable conversation, and we've established a lot of people don't. I think the statistic, well, no, actually, I know the statistics suggest 60% of people that struggle with their mental health don't ask for help or don't seek support. That's more than half of people that struggle with their mental health won't ever seek out support. So, Sam, it's a great idea. Catch up with a friend, a colleague, someone in your community, go for a walk and have a chat. I do that with two of my best friends. The three of us, we go for a walk once a month, and once a year we go on a 5-day walking trip and we just talk. So 3 guys out walking, rambling and chewing the fat and expressing how we feel about life. Go for a coffee, yeah. What else can we do? How else can we encourage others? Because even if you go for a walk and go for a coffee, that doesn't necessarily mean people are going to be comfortable opening up. This is where I'd like to share something with you, which hopefully will equip you with a tool to be able to encourage people to open up. And the 2 tools I'm going to share with you today are drawn straight from our Mental Health Champions program. This is our landmark signature program. We've literally have now a few thousand people around the world that have been through that program. We've got some of our corporate clients that have rolled this out across their workforces. And there's some key elements of that I'd like to share with you today. And if any of you are interested in finding out more about that program, we can share information on that later. And the model I'm going to share with you today is ACT: authenticity, connection, and topic. If you were to go on a blind date, someone you've never met before, maybe you've met online, would you turn up to the date, walk up to the person before saying a word and jump in for a kiss, try and get your tongue down their throat? Would you do that? It seems like a strange analogy. It will make sense. I'd like to think that you wouldn't do that, because that's going to end up with getting a slap and possibly getting arrested, because that would literally be a violation. And, Matthew, I was working on the premise that you aren't married, but yes, point taken. But the point I'm making is, if that was an actual scenario, would you agree you kind of need to build the chemistry first? You need to sit down, have a drink, have a chat, have a meal together, get to know each other. And when you've established the chemistry, if you are then to lean in for a kiss, you've significantly increased your chance of success. Would you agree with that? Yeah, absolutely. In the same way, approaching someone that's struggling and saying to them, what's going on? How are you feeling? What's going on with your mental health? You may as well be putting your tongue down their throat. It's kind of like you're not there yet. Does that make sense? You have to get someone to feel safe and comfortable. You have to build the rapport. So when you do ask a meaningful question, you're more likely to get engagement and a positive response. Now, here's the good news. As much as I'm introducing a model to you that you may not have come across before, I've been doing this since we started. Firstly, when we started this session, even before we got into the session, some of you arrived a little bit early, what did we do? What did I do? Just encourage people to get involved, to have a bit more of a dialogue. For those of you who are here early, what's the one question I asked, just to kind of get people talking?
Ask who we were and where we were from.
Absolutely. The classic question, anyone that remembers the 90s, when you went out raving, you'd be in a field or in a disused warehouse. What's your name? Where you're from? Classic questions. Some of you be old enough to remember that. Absolutely. And you know what? I didn't realize at the time, but the 90s rave culture was a spiritual movement, because it didn't matter where you're from, what you look like, the color of your skin, or your religion. We were just out having a good time. And those were the two most important questions I took from the 90s, is what's your name, where you're from? Nothing else mattered, right? And I always start our sessions with what's your name, where you're from, because it's an easy thing for us to get involved with. We can all answer that question. It's a way of getting us talking. And exactly as you're saying, Dawn, it builds rapport. But also, if I want you to open up, I need to be willing to open up myself. What did I do today to show authenticity? When I started this session, I shared something. I was vulnerable with you. Who can remember what I shared? For me to allow you to show mine, to encourage you to show yours.
You told us your story, your backstory as to why you are where you are now.
Absolutely. Thank you, Matthew. I told you my backstory of having a breakdown and attempting to end my own life. I didn't do that to say, oh, look at me, I'm so great, I had this experience. I did that as part of this framework. I offered you my story to encourage you to feel safe and comfortable to share yours. Does that make sense? And also, we started with like an easy, accessible topic. The topic was where you're from. What's another easy topic for us, particularly those of you in Britain? I know we do have an international audience, but as Brits, what do we love talking about, complaining about? We're never happy, no matter what it's doing.
It's the weather.
The weather. Thank you, Sarah. It doesn't matter what the weather's doing. It's too hot, too cold, too wet, too snowy, too icy. We've always got a problem with the weather. If we didn't have the weather to talk about, I don't know what we would talk about, to be honest. So there's an easy, accessible topic. What would be something else that we could use? Because again, if someone's struggling, we need to get them comfortable talking before we go in to the more meaty conversations. What's another thing that we could talk about? You could talk about the job, Lucia, but if the job is a source of stress, that might not be the easiest place to start. Food, pets, absolutely. Holiday. What about men? What's another really accessible topic? Yeah, Wigan Branch. So I'm calling you Wigan Branch because that's all you come up on the screen as. Football and sport. For men, it's a great place to start. And once we've used that as a conversation starter, it's easy to broaden it out. I have, with a lot of my male friends, we've got a football chat. on WhatsApp. And it used to be just about football, but more recently, I found that actually that chat has been used for a lot of other things, including how people are doing and what's going on and how people are coping with what's going on in the world around us. Because it started as a safe place where you could just have a bit of banter, and it still is a place for banter and to talk about sport and football, etc., and rugby and cricket and whatever else. But it's also now become a place where people feel safe enough to be able to express themselves. And that's really what I'm encouraging you to do, is create spaces where you can just start by talking about things that are easily accessible, but use that to build the rapport and the comfort to have more deeper dialogue. And this is really where this ACT framework is the first step, is show authenticity. If you want someone to open up and be vulnerable, you need to be willing to be vulnerable yourself. If you want people to start being able to express themselves, you need to be willing to express yourself as well. The connection. Ultimately, this doesn't happen in 5 seconds. It's not going to be, oh, let's talk about football for like 30 seconds and now tell me how you're doing, because it takes a bit of time, and making people feel safe and comfortable is where over time we're going to encourage them to feel the comfort to open up. For those of you that are here for the first time at one of our webinars, you'll be like, whoa, this is weird. He's actually talking to us. I'm not just here in the background. He's asking questions and waiting for us to respond. Those of you that have been here before will have experienced this, and over time would have got more comfortable and will feel safe to share, because you know it's a safe space to do so. So keep trying, keep making the space, keep giving the opportunity for people to open up where necessary. And how do we do that? How can we encourage connection? How can we encourage dialogue? What do we need to do that's going to really encourage people to get engaged? I'll give you a clue. I'm always giving you the answer as I ask a question. What can we do to encourage people to get involved in dialogue with us? I'm doing it right now. Thank you, Robin. Ask questions and allow time for them to respond. Because here's the thing. If you ask a question and you don't give space for a response and you get uncomfortable, you've broken the ability for that person to engage. As you've noticed today, there's been plenty of times where I've just stopped and waited and given space for you to be able to engage. So this is really where listening isn't just about asking a question, and if you don't get a response in 2 seconds, you feel the silence. Sometimes, as Dawn said, you've got to be comfortable in the silence. Essentially, get comfortable being uncomfortable. That's where the connection will come. And then the last one, starting with those easy, accessible topics. But time to talk, for me, needs to have some further instructions that go along with the time to talk day, because it could be easy to believe that time to talk is like, right, and I'm going to say to you guys, it's really important you do this, and I'm going to talk at you and tell you why you need to do this, and just keep talking and monologue at you. I could very easily have turned up at this session and spent an hour literally talking at you. For me, actually, what is more important than talking is listening. And many of us struggle with the silence. If we can't get comfortable with the silence, you are going to find that the dialogue is going to be one way. So I'm going to share an acronym with you. And this is, you all need to get better with wait. What do I mean by wait? So wait, why am I talking? So this talks to Leslie's point around active listening. What do you think I mean by this? To work with an acronym like WAIT, what do you think that means to you? Why am I talking? What do you think it means? If you were to ask yourself the question, why am I talking? What comes to mind? Absolutely, all of the above. So, Leah, do you want to share some of the things in the chat around what people's thoughts are around why am I talking?
Yep. So filling the silence, what is the deeper meaning? To be heard, to make us think. Someone said I'm normally talking to get information, avoiding the answer. Am I hearing what other people are saying to me? And just filling the space with noise.
Absolutely. A lot of people don't actually listen. They wait for a gap in the conversation or wait for a moment of silence so they can say what they were thinking in their mind. Does that make sense? And when someone's talking, you're already starting to think about what am I going to say in response to that? There is huge power in silence. If you really want to engage someone and encourage them to open up, all you need to do is ask questions and create opportunities for them to share without needing to respond. In fact, I'm going to encourage you not to give people advice, guidance, and counseling. Maybe that's not what they need. Maybe they just need a shoulder and an ear. And this is for me where Time to Talk Day is a good opportunity for us to reinforce that message. Time to Talk is not you talking at people. It's encouraging others to talk to you. And you provide the shoulder, the ear, and some empathy and the support that gives them the opportunity to be able to express themselves. And absolutely, Leslie. And I'm not sure about the worms going in the ear, but yes, absolutely. That actually feels, let's give you a bit of a shiver, the thought of worms crawling in my ear. So, you know, when you are talking to someone, particularly someone that's struggling, if you're about to open your mouth, before you do so, ask yourself, why am I talking? Why am I about to open my mouth? What is the purpose of me sharing what I'm sharing? For example, when I shared my story, I asked myself that before I shared it. Why am I talking? I am sharing my story to encourage you to share yours. And if there are times where someone says something and I feel compelled to give advice or guidance, my question to myself should be, why am I sharing this? For whose benefit? Is it so I can look good? Or is it to help that person? And more often than not, even if I have the answer or the solution, I encourage you not to give it, but to give space for them to be able to figure it out for themselves, unless they're specifically asking for help and support. So yeah, absolutely. So why am I talking for me is a really good place to start. So this is really where, as we move forward, I want us to take some moments to consider how can we move this forward. And this is really where I need some response from you. Starting with the first thing that we introduced, which is the ACT framework. How can you use the ACT framework to create a safe space for people, to use the authenticity, the connection, and easy accessible topics that encourage people to open up and start sharing? How are you going to show support and understanding in conversations about mental health using why am I talking? So actually, less is more. We speak less, but encourage more. How are you going to build confidence in your ability to support others through listening? Because as I said, many people, when they want to help, they get into like, how are we fixing this? What's the solution? You know, what can we do? Whereas actually, that should be the person who's having the experience that is driving that, and you are there just to encourage and support and guide them in coming up with those actions. And how can we encourage meaningful discussions of positive change? So it's where I'd really love to hear from some of you. So who'd love to jump on to the mic just to share some of your thoughts around this, because I think it's really important that we spend a few minutes together before we finish today, come up with some positive actions that we can do to encourage more positive dialogues and encourage people to be able to feel safe and comfortable to engage in conversations around their mental and emotional well-being. So who's got some thoughts around this? Or also what I'd love to hear is if you have taken action that's brought about positive benefits, what have you done? And what were the benefits of the actions that you've taken in the areas that we're highlighting?
I think for me, the weight thing is going to be huge because I'm someone who does not like silence. It panics me and I do tend to gabble instead. So I think I'm going to try and enforce letting myself feel awkward with the silence to give other people longer to respond.
And so, sorry, can I get your name? Because I've been calling you Wigan Branch.
Oh, actually, I'm not very technical. I can't change my name on here, but it's Robin.
Robin, so I've got a question for you. When there is silence, what is the reason that you kind of interject to break that silence?
Awkwardness. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm pressuring them to carry on talking, so I'd better start talking instead.
What is the potential consequences of you interjecting when someone might be reflecting or thinking or considering how they respond to your question? What might happen to their process if you interject?
Yeah, they don't have time to process fully what they're thinking and then get it out.
Yeah, so you might have cut their process. You may have actually shut them down where they were just thinking about how they formulate their response, and you then shut that down. So as much as it might feel uncomfortable, can you see you may have done that person a disservice?
Completely, yeah.
And actually, if you really want to be there to support them, actually give them the time and the space. That's something many of us struggle with in modern society. We're in such a rush and we're so keen to get to solutions and fix things and take things forward. Actually, many of us find it really difficult just to give people time and space. And I'm not asking you to take my word for it. I'm asking you to try this out, to give this a go, to see what happens and how that changes your interactions. Yes, you're going to feel uncomfortable initially, but when you start to get the positive reactions, you'll be like, wait, hold on a minute. It's going to feel good that you've seen the changes in people because you gave them that time and space. And that's where it becomes easier. So you're not feeling the pressure because it's like, you know, what you do is going to deliver value. So yeah, thank you, Robin. Nina, go for it. Nina Watts, I can see you've got your hand up. What would you like to share? Anyone else? I'm not sure if Nina's still there or would like to share, but yeah, Sophie, go for
it. Yeah, one thing that we was starting to do in our workplace to sort of create a space for people to get talking, not necessarily about mental health, but just to build the friendships in general, is we started to have coffee catch-ups that we do online, because when you've got majority of a team that sort of work online and you don't meet in person, that was just a really great way to have a little bit of time aside just to actually chat and get to know each other and talk about those things like weather or sports.
And Sophie, I love that. You know, in the modern workplace, particularly since COVID, we spend a lot of time in Teams, Zoom, Skype calls. And when we were in these meetings, it's very much straight down to business. Has anyone noticed that? Like, if we were in a meeting room together, we would had a cup of tea and caught up and talked about a whole variety of things. How's your family doing? How's the sports team doing? You know, you've seen the weather. We haven't got time for that anymore because we're pretty much straight down to business. So we're losing the time for human interaction. So I love the fact, Sophie, you create time just for that. And what's interesting, what do we call that? You know, if it's coffee and a catch up, what do we call that? Small talk. Anyone ever heard the term small talk? We've actually diminished it to the point where it's like it's insignificant. One of the things I'm compelling you all to do is remove this idea of small talk. It's actually big talk. It's human talk. It's human connection. For me, it's more important than the technical, functional, operational stuff because we are emotional creatures. We are not AI. We're not robots. We need social interaction for us to flourish. So actually, Sophie, what you're suggesting there, would you agree that the people that engage in such activities show up as better versions of themselves when they feel connected and valued by the people around them?
Yeah, definitely, because it gives you a chance to, just like you said, just be human, and you're not just constantly like in robot mode all day.
Absolutely. For any of you interested in this, I spent a lot of time talking about this. There's a documentary on Netflix about blue zones. Blue zones are areas in the world where people typically live to more than 100 years of age. And there are a number of different factors, but one of the most significant factors that results in people living to about 100, but not only living longer, the quality of their life, they're happier, they're healthier, It was one of the examples in the video, in the documentary. It was guy's about 100 years old, and he's riding a horse like in his 60s, ranching cattle. I've literally just come back from one of the blue zones in a place called Nosara in Costa Rica. And it's just incredible that they don't have hospitals and pharmacies and Amazon Prime and supermarkets stocked with food, yet they're living longer, happier, healthier lives than many of us that live in urban settings in cities. Because they've got something that we don't, each other, that sense of community. There are pillar stones of human well-being that we seem to have lost. And you know, even simple things like coffee and catch-up can start to reintegrate and reinstill that sense of community. So these are great examples. And this is something that I'm going to encourage you to spend some time considering. Talking isn't just what you say. Actually, for me, talking is more about what you hear and how you can encourage your spaces for people to express themselves. So I could spend a lot longer on this conversation. There's a bunch of free resources on our website. As I said, there is some specifically related to today's discussion at stress.org.uk/TTD. Leah will put the link into the chat now. For those of you who are looking for ideas for your workplace, if you are a HR, health and safety or a workplace wellbeing specialist, please join our People, Culture and Wellbeing Forum. Again, Leah will put the the link into the chat on how you can sign up for that. This is more information around factors for the workplace. We have a fortnightly newsletter and we have a monthly meeting as well. The next meeting will be on the 28th of February, where we've got people from a variety of different organizations, big clients like Mars and Amazon, as well as some of our more local clients. And we're just sharing ideas and best practice. So if you're interested in joining that forum, you can click the link in the chat to sign up for that. We have our weekly newsletter. Most of you have probably ended up in this webinar off the back of our newsletter. If you don't get that, we send that once a week. They'll again put the link into the chat there on how to sign up for the newsletter. I mentioned our Public Mental Health Champions. That's our landmark program. It's essentially a modern day equivalent of mental health first aid, not knocking mental health first aid, but it was written in a different world. This was written pre-COVID, so we've got a more practical approach to a peer-to-peer support. And that we had many thousands of people that have been through the Mental Health Champions program. As an attendee of our webinar, there is a £200 discount. There will be a link and a code that will come out to you by email tomorrow if you get our newsletter. If you don't get our newsletter, please sign up for it, because all the resources that we're going to share off today's webinar, you won't receive unless you get our newsletter. So yeah, if you use the link that's been shared, you'll get a £200 discount. And then we've got our online training program where you can get 50% off of that if you use the link in the chat. If you found this session useful, beneficial, please leave us a review on Google. As I said, we don't have any external public funding. Everything we do is self-funded. So the support of the people that engage with us and interact with us and attend our sessions is crucial for us to be able to do what we do. And for those of you within organizations, we have, I'm not going to say we, Leah, the wonderful Leah, has just written a white paper on how to maximize EAP utilization. Many of our organizations have support services that just don't get used. And one of the challenges that we've discussed today is because of the guilt, shame, and stigma that surrounded the subject. Not only do we not talk about it, people don't reach out and get the support they need. And even if in your company or in your organization you have support in place, there's a very strong chance that it's not being effectively utilized because we haven't considered the barriers to uptake. And that's why we've put together a little white paper, which is free of charge, on how you can get people to, so how we can encourage people to utilize the resources that we have in place. And we're also offering a free review on how you can better utilize the resources that you already have. So you can reach out for more information on that. If you are struggling right now and feel like you need immediate support, I encourage you to contact the Samaritans. If you are an older person, Silverline offers great support. Mine also have advice and support available. And specifically for men, there's the Campaign Against Living Miserably. So the resources are there. This will all be in the information that we'll send out. The slides from today's session will also be made available to you via the links shared earlier. Next month, we are going to be launching our Stress Awareness Month campaign, which is April 2025, but the launch session, the webinar on that, will be on the 20th of March. And the subject is unconditional positive regard, which essentially is leading with love. How can we be the change we want to see in the world around us? So please do sign up to attend the March webinar to find out about the April campaign. Wonderful. So unfortunately, that's all the time we have available for today's session. I will give a little bit of time here for any final questions, comments and feedbacks. If anyone has anything you'd like to discuss, share, ask, I will hang out for the next 10 minutes to answer your questions. But other than that, thank you so much for being here. Please make the time to talk to the people around you today. Give space. When you ask a question, wait, give them the space to respond. And I'm hoping that all of you can at least have 1 or 2 meaningful conversations with the people around you today, and hopefully make the world a better place, one conversation at a time. Thank you all. Sending you so much love. And if not before, see you at the March webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you all.